I never thought I would be standing here, in this dark room, holding something I didn't fully understand. But here I was, staring at a strange object in my hands, with the feeling that my life was about to change forever. Just a few days ago, everything seemed normal. I was like any other person, working hard to get by, hoping that one day, I would have enough to live the way I dreamed. But one night, everything changed. It all started when I heard about a money ritual. I didn't believe in stuff like that at first, but the more I heard about it, the more curious I became. People said it was a way to get rich quickly. All you needed was to follow certain steps and do a few right things, and you would have money flowing to you in no time. At first, I thought it sounded crazy. But the more I thought about it, the more I began to wonder, what if it was real? I needed money, badly. My bills were stacking up, and I was running out of time. So, I decided to try it. I followed all the instructions carefully, making sure I didn't miss a single step. There were strange things involved, candles, special herbs, and even chanting. But the hardest part was the last step. I had to give something in return. Something that would cost me more than I could ever imagine. I thought it was just a simple ritual. But as the night grew darker, something inside me told me that I was about to make a choice I couldn't take back. The next morning, something strange happened. At first, it seemed like a small thing, a coincidence, something I could brush off. But as the day went on, the signs became harder to ignore. When I woke up, there was a feeling of coldness in the air, like a chill had settled into my room. I thought it was just the weather, but then, as I got out of bed, I noticed something different. My phone buzzed with a message, an alert from my bank. I opened it, expecting just a usual notification, but what I saw made my heart stop. There was money in my account. A large sum, way more than I'd ever seen before. I couldn't believe it. I checked again. Still there. I had no idea where it came from. I wasn't expecting a deposit, and certainly not that much. My first thought was that maybe it was some sort of mistake. But deep down, I knew what it meant. The ritual. It worked. But I didn't feel excited. I felt uneasy. This wasn't the way money was supposed to come to me. I should have felt happy, grateful. But instead, I felt a weight settle on my shoulders, like I had made a deal with something I didn't fully understand. The kind of deal that could cost more than just money. I couldn't ignore it anymore. The money was real, but so were the strange feelings that came with it. Over the next few days, things started to spiral out of control. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. Everywhere I went, I felt eyes on me. In the streets, in the store, even in my own home. It wasn't just paranoia, it was real. And then, I started hearing things, whispers in the middle of the night, voices that I couldn't make out. I tried to ignore it, thinking I was just tired, but I couldn't. It felt like something was following me. Watching me. Waiting. One night, I had a dream. In the dream, a shadowy figure appeared in front of me, standing tall and dark, its eyes glowing red. It reached out a hand, and I felt a cold, paralyzing fear run through me. I knew who it was. It was the price of the ritual. The thing that I had agreed to when I asked for the money. I woke up in a cold sweat, the feeling of dread still hanging over me. I looked around my room, expecting to see the shadow figure in the corner. But it was just darkness. For a moment, I thought I was imagining things. Maybe it was just the stress getting to me. But deep down, I knew this wasn't something I could just brush off. The days that followed were a blur. The money continued to come in, more than I could ever dream of. But with it, the dark feelings only grew stronger. The whispers became louder, the shadows more real. And then, one night, I received a message. It was from an unknown number, and the words were simple but chilling. You know the price. It's time to pay. I felt my heart race as I read those words over and over again. Pay, what did it mean? What did I have to give? I had already given so much. The fear, the nightmares, the constant feeling of being watched. Was that not enough? I decided to go back to where it all began. The place where I had done the ritual. The place that felt like it held all the answers, or maybe just more questions. I stood in the room, staring at the spot where I had made my choice. The candles, the herbs, the objects, they were gone now, but the air still felt thick with power. And then, I heard it, a voice, cold and clear, right behind me. You have everything you wanted. Now, it's time for you to return what you took. I didn't know what that meant, but I knew one thing for sure, I was running out of time. The choice was no longer mine to make, it was something bigger than me. And I was terrified. I didn't know what to do. I was trapped, caught in something much bigger than I ever imagined. The money was real, the power was real, but so were the consequences. It was too late to undo what had been done. The figure from my dream reappeared that night, standing in the corner of my room. Its eyes burned red, and it didn't say a word. It didn't need to. I could feel it in my bones, it was time. The ritual had been completed, and now the price had come due. I thought about running, about trying to escape, but I knew it was useless. The more I resisted, the more I felt the weight of it all pressing in on me. I had made a deal, and now it was time to face the music. But what would the price be? I didn't know, and I didn't want to know. But the one thing I did know was that my life would never be the same again. The money, the power, the fame, it all came at a cost. And now, it was time to pay. The room was still, but it felt like everything was vibrating, as if the very air around me was alive, charged with an energy I couldn't understand. The figure in the corner did not move, but I could feel its presence growing stronger, its gaze like an invisible hand gripping my heart. It was as though it was waiting for me to do something, to make the next move. But what could I do? What choice did I have? For a moment, I stood frozen, trying to find a way out, some way to undo the ritual I had done. But deep down, I knew there was no going back. The deal was sealed. I had asked for the money, for the wealth I so desperately wanted, and in return, I had given something I could never get back. I could feel the weight of the figure's stare, cold and unrelenting. Its silence was worse than any words could have been. My thoughts raced. What had I given up? What was the cost of my greed? As if in answer, the figure slowly moved, its body a shadow in the dim light. It glided across the room, its movement smooth and terrifying. When it reached me, it didn't speak. It simply raised a hand, a long, pale finger pointing directly at my chest. The air grew colder, and I felt a pressure building inside me, like I was being crushed under an invisible weight. You wanted more, the figure's voice finally broke the silence, but it wasn't spoken aloud. It was inside my head, echoing with power. You took what you didn't deserve. Now, the cost must be paid. My body trembled, and I wanted to run. I wanted to scream, to beg for mercy, but I couldn't move. The figure's power was too strong, too overwhelming. Then, the voice continued, colder than ever, you have 3 choices. One will save you. One will destroy you. The third will leave you lost forever. I didn't understand. What was it talking about? Choices. What choices? The figure didn't explain, but it didn't need to. It began to fade, disappearing into the shadows, leaving only its words hanging in the air, heavy and ominous. I was left standing alone in the room, the coldness still gripping me, the whispers in my mind growing louder. The figure's disappearance didn't bring relief, it only deepened my confusion and fear. I stood there, thinking about the choices it had given me. What did they mean? How was I supposed to decide? I was no longer just in danger from the ritual. I was in danger of losing myself, of being consumed by something much bigger than I ever imagined. I tried to calm myself. Maybe the figure was just playing mind games, I thought. Maybe it was trying to scare me into making a choice before I was ready. But deep down, I knew better. This was real. It wasn't a game. The consequences were too serious for that. As the hours passed, I couldn't stop thinking about the choices the figure had mentioned. Save. Destroy. Lost. I began to wonder if each choice was tied to something I had done. Had my greed led me down this path? Had I been too hasty, too desperate for wealth and power? Could I reverse what I had done, or had I already crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed? The money was still in my account, and I had everything I ever wanted. But it didn't feel like enough. There was something missing. A hollowness that I couldn't explain. I thought I could live a dream life, rich and carefree, but now all I could feel was dread. I realized that no amount of money would ever fill the emptiness that had started to grow inside me. I remembered the figure's words, "One will save you." But save me from what? What was I really being saved from? I couldn't ignore the feeling inside me any longer. It was like a pull, a force guiding me to make a decision. It was overwhelming, like I couldn't escape it even if I wanted to. The money was not enough to silence the fear. The power I had gained had only opened a door to something darker, something more dangerous than I could handle. I had to make a choice. The figure had said there were 3 options. But how could I know which one to pick? I couldn't stop thinking about the first choice, save. What did it mean to be saved? Was it a way out of all this madness? Was it a chance to get my life back to normal? To undo the ritual, to get rid of the dark figure, to escape the feeling that I was being watched at every turn? Then I thought about the second choice, destroy. Was this the path to end it all? To destroy everything, my wealth, my power, my connection to the ritual, and hope that it would free me from whatever curse I had brought upon myself. Would destroying it all truly erase the darkness, or would it make things worse? And then there was the last choice, lost. This one scared me the most. To be lost forever, to vanish into the void, forgotten by the world and even by myself. Could it be that the final choice was to accept the ritual's price, to lose everything, including myself? I had no way of knowing which choice was the right one, but I had to make it. There was no more running. No more hiding. I took a deep breath, trying to calm my racing heart, and slowly made my decision. The moment I made my choice, everything changed. It was like the world shifted around me. I could feel the air change, the very atmosphere growing heavy. It was as though the universe was watching, waiting to see the outcome of my decision. For a few seconds, everything went silent. And then, the figure appeared again, its eyes burning bright. I couldn't see its face clearly, but I could feel its presence, the overwhelming power radiating from it. It was here to deliver the consequence of my choice. I didn't know if I had chosen wisely. I didn't know if I had chosen at all. But I had made my decision, and now, there was no going back. The figure's voice echoed in my mind again, cold and final. You have chosen. Now, face what you have set in motion. And with those words, everything went dark. I woke up in a place I didn't recognize. It wasn't my room, it wasn't anywhere I had been before. The air was thick, heavy with a kind of oppressive silence that felt suffocating. I tried to sit up, but my body felt weak, as if I had been asleep for far too long. The first thing I noticed was the strange coldness that surrounded me, the kind of cold that didn't come from the weather, but from somewhere deeper, somewhere within the very walls of the space. I blinked, adjusting my eyes to the dim light that barely illuminated the area around me. It was a small, narrow room, with no windows and only one door. The walls were smooth, cold stone, and there was a strange symbol etched into the floor beneath me. The symbol was glowing faintly, pulsating with a light that seemed to beat in time with my heart. I could feel my chest tightening, a wave of panic washing over me. What was happening? Where was I? The figure had said there would be consequences for my choice. But I hadn't known it would feel like this. I slowly got to my feet, trying to steady myself, but something in the back of my mind was whispering, telling me not to move. Telling me to stay still, stay quiet. But I couldn't ignore the urge to find out where I was. I had to understand what had happened to me. I approached the door, but as I reached for the handle, a sharp voice rang out from the darkness. It's too late now. The choice is made. The voice was low, almost a growl, and it sent a shiver down my spine. I looked around, but there was no one in sight. The voice came from nowhere, filling the room like an invisible presence. It was the same voice I had heard in my dreams, the one that had told me I was bound to the ritual. Who are you? I whispered into the darkness, my voice barely audible. I am what you summoned. I am the consequence of your desire. The words hit me like a wave, crashing over me. I wanted to scream, to shout at it, but I couldn't find my voice. The room seemed to shrink around me, the walls closing in with each passing second. I backed away from the door, my mind spinning. This wasn't the world I knew. This wasn't reality. This was something else. Something ancient, something dark. The price I had paid for my greed was no longer abstract, it was real. And it was staring me in the face. As the seconds dragged on, I began to realize that I had not been taken to a place of punishment, but to a place where the rules of the world I knew no longer applied. It was a world of power, darkness, and something much older than I could comprehend. The feeling of being trapped inside a cage of my own making crept over me, suffocating me with every breath. My eyes searched for an escape, but there was no way out. The door remained silent and unmoving, and no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't break the symbol on the floor. It wasn't just a drawing, it was alive, pulsating, like a heartbeat that was not my own. I fell to my knees, my mind spinning with the weight of it all. This is what I wanted, I thought bitterly. This is the price of greed. But the voice, the thing, it wasn't done with me. It was patient, almost amused by my fear. Did you think you could summon wealth without consequences? Did you believe you could call upon the forces of this world and not pay the price? I didn't answer. I couldn't. There were no words that could fix what had been broken. The ritual had been my choice, my mistake. And now, the consequences were here, and they were far more terrifying than I had ever imagined. Suddenly, a sharp pain shot through my chest, like a needle piercing my skin. I gasped, clutching at my heart, my breathing growing ragged. The pain intensified, spreading throughout my entire body. It was as though the money I had received, the wealth, the power, was all turning against me, ripping me apart from the inside out. The voice spoke again, but this time, there was a cold finality to it. You wanted power. You wanted wealth. Now, you will learn the price of those desires. You will feel the burn of every choice you made. I screamed, my body writhing in pain, but the voice simply continued, its words like poison. You will never escape this place. You will never leave what you have summoned. I don't know how long I was there. The pain felt like it lasted forever. But eventually, it began to fade. Not because the pain was gone, but because I had grown numb to it. The coldness that had enveloped the room seeped into me, draining everything out until I was hollow. Empty. The figure had been right. The price wasn't just money. It wasn't just the power that I had gained. The price was me. I had sold my soul, my very essence, in exchange for what? Wealth. A life of luxury that meant nothing when the cost was this high. I had wanted everything, and in return, I had lost myself. The voice returned, soft and calm now, almost as if it were speaking to a broken child. You are bound. You belong to this world now, this world of darkness, of power. There is no going back for you. You are lost. The words burned into my mind like a brand, and I understood then, this was it. This was my life now. I had made the ultimate sacrifice, but it wasn't a sacrifice I had ever agreed to. The ritual wasn't just about money or power. It was about control. The control that it had over me now. I had entered into a deal with something far older and more dangerous than I could ever have known. And now, I was trapped in its grip. But even as the truth settled in, a part of me, the last part of me that was still me, refused to give up. I might be bound. I might be trapped. But I wasn't done fighting. Not yet. I don't know how long I stayed in that room, empty and alone. Time seemed to lose meaning in the place I was trapped. The pain had dulled, replaced by a suffocating numbness that gnawed at the edges of my consciousness. I couldn't escape the sense of being watched, the feeling that someone was always there, lurking in the shadows, just beyond my sight. The voice, the presence that had first spoken to me, still haunted the silence. It would speak to me in my mind, sometimes in riddles, sometimes in whispers, never offering comfort, only cold, harsh truths. I had made a choice. I had paid. But what had I truly gained? The glowing symbol on the floor still pulsed, faintly now, as if it were slowly dying, or perhaps it was waiting for something. I couldn't be sure, but I knew one thing for certain: I had not been the one who controlled this place. The ritual hadn't just summoned power, it had summoned a master. A force beyond my understanding, and now I was bound to it, a puppet whose strings were pulled by a hand I could never touch. The voice broke the silence once again, its tone no longer cold, but almost familiar, like a memory I couldn't quite place. You wonder who I am. You wonder why you are here. You think you made the choice, but in truth, I led you to it. I guided you. The words sent a ripple of panic through me, but it was the next thing that made my blood run cold. You think you are the only one to have made such a choice? You are not unique. There are many who seek wealth, who seek power, and many who make the same deal. But none of them, have ever managed to escape. They are all mine now. Just as you will be. I wanted to scream, to fight, to run, but I was too weak. Too far gone. You are nothing more than a tool, a means to an end. Your desires, your choices, have brought you here. And now, your soul belongs to me. Forever. Those words struck me like a thunderclap. I tried to move, to break free from the heavy chains that seemed to grip my very spirit, but no matter how hard I struggled, nothing changed. I was trapped. In my desperation, I reached out, grabbing at the air around me as if I could physically rip away the grip that held me. But there was no escape. I was a prisoner of my own desires. Days, weeks, months, time no longer mattered. In the place where I now existed, nothing changed. It was a prison without walls, without bars. It was a prison of the mind, a world made of shadows and whispers, where I was forced to relive the choice I had made over and over again. The voice would come to me, sometimes gentle, sometimes harsh, always present. It would remind me of my greed, of my desire for wealth, and how it had led me to this fate. You were foolish, it would say, but you are not the first to be foolish. You will not be the last. I had long stopped trying to fight the voice. It was pointless. Resistance only made the darkness around me grow stronger, more suffocating. But then, one day, something changed. I didn't hear the voice. There were no whispers, no commands. The silence was deafening. The shadows that had been my constant companions suddenly seemed still, empty, like the world itself was holding its breath. I looked around, feeling a sense of unease settle in my chest. This was not like the place I had been trapped in for so long. There was something new in the air, something different. And then, I saw it. In the farthest corner of the room, a figure began to materialize, slowly, as if from nothingness. At first, it was just a silhouette, but as it stepped closer, it became clearer. A tall, cloaked figure, their face hidden beneath a hood. But there was something about them, something powerful, something that sent a chill down my spine. The figure stepped forward, its movement smooth and purposeful, and in its wake, the darkness seemed to shrink away. The shadows receded, as if afraid of this new presence. "You've waited long enough," the figure said, its voice deep and steady. It was neither the voice I had heard before nor anything like it. This voice was calm, measured, but with an authority that demanded attention. "Your time has come. You will face what you've chosen." For the first time in what felt like an eternity, I felt a spark of hope. But the hope was fleeting, because I knew deep down that this wasn't some kind of rescue. This was something else. Something darker. The figure reached out, and I couldn't stop myself from taking a step back. Its hand was cold, its fingers long and skeletal, yet it was not human. It was as if the figure existed outside of time, outside of my understanding. There is no escaping what you have summoned. But you can choose to embrace your fate, or you can resist, and face the consequences of that choice. It was offering me something, but I didn't know what. I couldn't make sense of its words, but I could feel it. Whatever was happening now, whatever this new figure represented, it was more than the dark force that had bound me. "You will be judged," the figure said. "And you will be tested. Will you accept your place in this world, or will you fight to escape it?" The figure's words hung in the air, thick with meaning. I felt like I was being pulled in two different directions. Part of me wanted to accept my fate, to stop fighting, to finally let go of the fear that had gnawed at me for so long. But another part of me, the last sliver of who I used to be, wanted to fight, to resist whatever this was, whatever this force was that had taken control of my life. I couldn't stay here forever. I couldn't let this be the end of my story. The figure stepped closer, its presence so powerful that I could feel the air itself shifting. It didn't speak again, but its meaning was clear. It was waiting for me to make a choice. A choice that would decide the rest of my existence. "The trial begins now," it said finally. "Will you accept your fate and embrace the power you sought? Or will you struggle, and in doing so, seal your doom?" I stood there, trapped in the silence, as I thought about everything that had led me here. The wealth. The ritual. The price. The darkness. I had been so desperate, so willing to do anything to get what I wanted, and now, I was paying for it. But was I going to let this force control me completely? Was I going to surrender to it, to the power that had taken my soul? I had one chance. One moment to decide. And whatever I chose, it would change everything. The figure's presence weighed heavily on me, the air around us thick with tension. I could feel my heart beating wildly, the sound of it drowning out everything else. This was the moment. The choice would define everything that came after. I had no idea what to do, no idea which way to turn. My mind was racing, my thoughts tangled in a mess of fear, regret, and desperation. "Make your choice," the figure said, its voice soft but firm, like the murmur of a storm just before it broke. "The trial is not just of strength, but of will. Your soul, your destiny, will be shaped by your answer." I had come here, to this place, because of one thing, greed. I had wanted more. More money. More power. A life that was beyond the limits of ordinary people. But I had learned the hard way that nothing comes without a price. My soul, my life, it all seemed to be up for grabs, and now I was being asked to choose: would I surrender to the power that I had sought so desperately, or would I fight against it, even if it meant risking everything? You sought power, the figure continued, and now you must decide if you can truly wield it, or if it will break you. Power can corrupt. Power can consume. Will you embrace it, knowing what it will cost you? Or will you refuse it, and face the consequences of your rejection? I was no stranger to temptation. I had fallen for it once before when I made the deal that had brought me here. But this was different. This wasn't just about wealth or status. This was about something deeper, something darker. I could feel it, this thing, this force inside of me, pulsing like a second heartbeat. I knew that accepting it would change me, would make me something unrecognizable. But refusing it meant that I would never be free, never be whole again. The figure's hooded face remained hidden in shadow, but I could feel its gaze piercing through me, like it could see into my very soul. It was waiting. Time is running out, it whispered, its voice almost a caress. Make your decision, or it will be made for you. The words stung. I had already made a choice once, a choice that had led me to this moment. Had I learned nothing from that mistake? But as I thought about the past, about my desires and my choices, I realized something that terrified me even more. I wasn't sure who I was anymore. The greed, the thirst for power, it had consumed me, shaped me into something I didn't recognize. Could I fight it? Could I even try? As the darkness consumes the protagonist, one question remains: was the pursuit of wealth and power worth the ultimate price? The journey that began with a simple desire for success has now spiraled into an irreversible descent into corruption, where the very essence of humanity is at stake. What started as an innocent wish for a better life has turned into a nightmare where control is lost, and the darkness that once seemed distant has now become all too real. This is the price of greed, the unseen cost of seeking power without understanding the consequences. The protagonist, once driven by dreams of luxury and success, now faces the full weight of their choices. But even in the darkest of moments, the question remains: can anyone ever truly escape the grip of their own desires? Or do they, like the protagonist, become lost in the very thing they sought? The story doesn't end here. This is only the beginning of a dark transformation, and perhaps a warning to those who seek power at any cost. It's a tale of ambition, temptation, and the dangerous path that greed can lead us down. What will become of the protagonist? Can they regain control, or are they lost forever in the shadows they've created? Thank you for joining me on this unsettling journey. The path to wealth may seem enticing, but as we've seen, the cost can be far more than one can bear. Share your thoughts in the comments. What do you think will happen next? Don't forget to subscribe, like, and stay tuned for more chapters. The darkness might be far from over, and we may never know just how deep the rabbit hole goes. Stay safe, stay wise, and always remember, not everything that glitters is gold. Thank you for sticking with the story so far. If you're hooked and want to know what happens next, don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe, and share with your friends. Let's find out together where this dark journey leads next.